It is noon. I think we're going to get ourselves started here. I'm sure there will be some others joining us through the wonders of the World Wide Web. But hope everyone is well during this crazy quarantine life. I've lost track. We're in either like week 6 or week 7 of working from home. Coming to you live from my basement. My name is Connor Johnson. I am a member of Hatch Realty. My title is Training and Development Director. And I am super excited to be starting the session with all of you who are attending. I know this isn't just for those who are here live, but also for those who will be watching the recording later. Really appreciate you all taking this time, spending it with me, watching me ramble on about something I get pretty darn fired up about. The title of our time together is Finding Fulfillment in What We Do. That is probably one of the most important components of the training I bring to our team members at Hatch Realty, or aspire to bring to them. And I want to spend some time with you all going over how do you do this? How do you even start this long journey of finding fulfillment in the things you're doing? We're going to go over a model with a good chunk of our time here. But I think to really get started, one of the most powerful things I can do is maybe share my story and how I came to be talking about this with all of you. So right out of college, I got a job that was only a year long. And in the meantime, I was hired to join Hatch Realty as an agent. So I got my license, got that all taken care of, and I started working with Hatch Realty as a kind of an experimental role at the time. It was a partner role that assisted the full producing agents, helping them serve their clients and kind of providing leverage to them. And from that, I ended up graduating to become a buyer's agent, working with buyers, helping them find the next home, their first home. In my mind, I got to what I was supposed to be getting to. In life, it's kind of interesting. We are often told by society that you should be chasing wealth, some fame, some prestige. And that's what I kind of wanted to get for myself when I came onto this team. It was all I really knew coming out of college of myself was I know that I'm supposed to go and get a job, try and get a really good living, do good at it, and then I'll be set for life. I'll be ready to have a fulfilled, exciting life. So I graduate to becoming a buyer's agent. And I start working with folks, and things are going well. And I'll never forget the day I had a week where I helped 4 clients find their next home. I think the overall GCI was about $1 million. And for those you don't know, that's just the combined total of the houses I helped them get accepted offers on, combined to be about $1 million. And I'd helped penned 4 transactions. And that means a good week as a realtor. That means you're doing a great job. There's some prestige there. That's what I was told I'm supposed to feel by what society expects of us. But in that moment, I felt incredibly empty. I had joined this company because of its amazing culture, of the amazing people and what it was trying to do. But other than that, I was just thinking, I'm supposed to go make a paycheck, and then do really good at what I do. And I got to that point, I got to that proverbial mountain peak that we're all supposed to get to of good finances, prestige, high performance. And gosh, I felt empty, everybody. I was at the top of that mountain looking around saying, this is it? Like, this is the peak of being successful in life, being successful in your career. Boy, did I really crash after that. I'd gotten to this peak I thought I was supposed to be getting, felt empty, and boy, I struggled hard after that, everyone. My performance started going down. I struggled to just stay motivated, stay organized. Wow, it was a dark time realizing, what have I been working towards here? I love the place. I love the people here. I love what the group is working towards, but this isn't clicking for who I am. And thankfully, my boss, Mr. Eric Hatch, pulled me in because he was noticing this struggle, and we had an honest conversation. And I was prepared to walk out the door thinking I'm going to have to go figure out life. But he was and is an excellent man. And he said, let's try something here. The fact is, he had noticed throughout my time at Hatch Realty, I'd often raised my hand to help with some other things that weren't part of my job description. I was fired up and willing to assist in things beyond what was expected of me as just being a realtor. And he noticed that and he said, let's maybe make a place here because we think you're the right fit, but maybe you're just in the wrong role. And that is, in a nutshell, how I moved over to this role of Director of Training and Development, a unique role that doesn't exist as a standard position in real estate. Let me tell you all, this shift, it was a major change. It was a gamble. To be frank, a major cut in pay. But here's the fact, everyone, is I feel so much more fulfilled and satisfied in this position than what I was doing before. And looking back on it and where I've been since, a journey happened. A journey to discovering what fulfills me and what doesn't. And how can I use this identification of what fulfills me to lead a purposeful, energized life that makes me feel like I'm leaving the mark for me for this world. It was an amazing experience to look back on, and I currently have tried to codify that a little bit. Try to look back and say, how can we make this something teachable to others, this organic journey I kind of went on and have studied since in reading books, listening to podcasts, watching TED Talks, and all these other great minds, trying to craft how do we help ourselves discover what fulfills us before we get to this point where we've done all this work for something we are not fulfilled by. That's what I want to spend the rest of this time talking to you all about, is how to find this fulfillment, how to identify it and do something with it. Because as you can see on the screen here, the facts are money, fame, and prestige, those aren't on their own fulfilling for the average person. The fact is, money is a vehicle to get you to places, and most of us don't know where we want to go. We're chasing that vehicle that is money, and we just want to be recognized and seen, but we don't know necessarily what for. We're just told that's what we're supposed to be. So those aren't enough. There is something in every single one of us as unique individual people that is fulfilling. And that fulfillment, you could say that's our life's purpose, what impact we have to offer to the world around us. If you can channel that, you're going to be set up for a very fulfilled, satisfactory life. And when you are performing with that clarified, with that crystallized, I think you might be surprised by how that income, that wealth, that kind of comes as a byproduct. Not as the full focus, but as a byproduct of living with fulfillment. So how do we do this? How do we start trying to identify this for ourselves? Well, I've got something for us all to consider creating, something I've created for myself that has been an amazing roadmap for not only where I'm going today, but where I'm going for the rest of my life. And I call that the Fulfillment Solar System. The Fulfillment Solar System has become the roadmap for me. It is taking that raw journey that I experienced, trying to, again, codify it, break it down, study it, and come up with a strategy. How can we actually implement the means to find fulfillment. And it is this fulfillment solar system, this roadmap to who we are as individuals. And the step one part of this journey is to define your sun. Define your S-U-N. This is the very definition of that which fulfills you. What makes you feel alive? What makes you have your head hit the pillow at night and say, I lived a full day and I am satisfied? Your purpose, the why to your existence, what makes you feel good? What makes you feel fired up? What makes you come alive? Do we know how to define that for ourselves as individuals right now? By default, most of us would say, well, I feel like maybe it's to make a big income. Again, money is just a vehicle to get you to where you want to go, and we don't know where we want to go in the first place. We don't give ourselves the time to think that critically. And a lot of times, the next thing people say is, well, it's to be a good spouse, a good partner, to be a good parent. That's an admirable sense of purpose. But my challenge is who doesn't want to be that if you are a parent or a partner? I think that one's a given. What we're talking about here for defining your sun is for you and only you, what makes you come alive as an individual for yourself. It is when you can best channel your sun, that energy that makes you the best version of yourself for the people you love and care about. So we gotta brush aside the standard answers of to have a successful living financially, to be the top of my game, and also to forego I want to be the best family member I can. Those are standard ones, and that's not what we're looking for here. There's something more to you and who you are as an individual on your own that we need to find for ourselves. So at the heart of everything you do, your sun, how do you find that? How do you identify what this thing is? This thing that warms you up, that fires you up. There are multiple methods out there to defining your sun. But one of them that I've gone through for myself is this fulfillment journal. This fulfillment journal is one method to helping you identify your sun. What does that look like? Well, your sun, again, this fulfiller statement, this purpose statement, this why statement, whatever you want to call it, it dates back to your origins. It dates back to who you've been from your youth onward. So it's good to stop and reflect on who you are as a person. This is literally asking you to create a journal and start documenting what is everything about me that I love and care about. So imagine grabbing yourself a notebook, and here's a prompt for you. Here's kind of your homework to actually do this exercise, is ask yourself a few questions. Ask yourself, what are my hobbies and interests? What little things bring me satisfaction? What big things bring me satisfaction? What are my passions? What do I promote? What am I an advocate for? What do I enjoy discussing? And what unique value do I provide to the people in my life? These are some interesting questions to reflect on and ask yourself and go deep with. We're trying to scratch well below the surface here. Answers like, I'm a good person to my friends, or I am friendly, that's not enough. We want to go deep here. And so when you ask yourself these questions, what are my hobbies and interests? What are my passions? What do I enjoy discussing? All these different questions to ask yourself. I want you to create a list of at least around 10 answers to that question about yourself. Write down at least 10 things under each one of those questions about yourself. Well, why do we say 10 versus 2 or 3? Well, when you're left with 2 or 3, it's easy to come up with those standard automatic answers that are typically kind of vague and just basic. But when we ask yourselves to come up with 10, we're asking you to get critical, to apply critical thinking to who you are and what you're all about. And boy, when you get critical, you're going to create a more comprehensive list to work with in this journal. So you have the questions to help prompt you to create a list of different things about who you are, about your hobbies and interests, so on and so forth. And now what you're going to do with that list is you're going to take every single one of those items you wrote down about yourself, and you're going to play a little game with each one of those things. That game is a statement you're going to ask yourself over and over again. Imagine a toddler telling you, but why? And you tell them the answer and they say, but why, but why, but why, but why, until you've hit this point where it's like, I don't have an answer for you. That's what you're going to do with every single one of these things you've written down, is you're going to ask yourself, okay, hobbies and interests. Connor, you wrote down you like museums. You like going to museums as far as your hobbies and interests. Connor, ask yourself this. What is the number one thing about that you love, that you feel fulfilled by? What is the number one thing about going to museums? Well, I stop and I think about this and I say, well, I love looking at the history. I love looking at the history of things, different worlds that I have not been a part of. Okay, that's an answer there. Now let's go a layer deeper. Connor, why did you answer it that way? What is the number one thing about that answer that makes you feel fulfilled or that you get enjoyment from? Okay, well, I said I like, the history of these other worlds I've never been a part of. Why does that matter to me? Well, it's kind of cool to imagine this whole different experience or form of existence that I've never lived. Connor, that's awesome. Why does that matter? What is the number one thing about that answer that gets you fulfilled, makes you fired up, that you enjoy? Well, I don't know. It's probably, I don't know. It's this experience that I never would have had otherwise. This sense of wonder about other lives people have lived. Connor, you just said it's a sense of wonder. It's this experience that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. I wrote that down. I wrote that kind of layered trajectory. I tracked my answers to my own questions, and I got to this point of an experience I wouldn't have experienced otherwise, and the sense of wonder about these other cultures that have existed, this other ways you can live life. I said, wow, that's getting deeper. And I put a line under that final layer I got to. I kept going down the list, and I got to the World Cup. And I love watching the World Cup. And I asked myself, so Connor, what's the number one thing you love about watching the World Cup? Oh man, I love the stories of one country versus another country in the most historic, popular, competitive global sport of soccer. I love the stories of these countries coming together to play each other for glory. And I love the dynamics of learning about the countries. Connor, you said you love learning about the dynamics of the countries. What is the number one thing about that you love about watching the World Cup? I love their culture. I love the experience of learning about their team. I love the matchups of these two different countries around the world coming together and their cultures meshing. Connor, what is about that you love? What's the number one thing about that you love? I don't know. It's these different worlds coming together. It's this unique experience. I learn a lot about the little nuggets I learn from these different cultures, and I get familiar with their story, and that helps me grow. And it's cool learning about their different experience as people in a different part of the country. Interesting. Obviously, if you're not following me, I'm paraphrasing the activity I did for myself. But these two separate things, going to museums and watching the World Cup, I started to realize as I got layers down, deeper and deeper, asking myself these self-reflective questions, I started identifying themes, everybody. That World Cup answer got deep enough to, again, a sense of wondering at different lives that could be lived, different experiences out there that people live. And then I also had this thing about I grow by learning about other culture through the World Cup. As I kept doing this activity down the list, these themes continued to emerge. When I got to this deep enough layer where it turned less into logical answers and more into senses of feeling. From logic all the way down to a feeling about something, to more of a philosophical belief about something. When you start hitting that layer, After you've been digging, you're getting closer to grasping at something powerful, everybody. And when you do this with enough different things about who you are, and you dig deep enough with this question of what's the number one thing about that that you feel fired up by, fulfilled by, that you enjoy, these themes start to emerge for you to work with. After doing this exercise, I identified consistently the themes of experiences of wonder and growth. That was the common threads I pulled from about 30, only 30 of the total things I was reviewing. I stopped there and I said, oh my gosh, I'm discovering something here. I'm consistently arriving at the sense of wonder that you can get from life experiences and a sense of personal growth. Am I channeling a core of who I am and what I care about? I know the answer to that based on how I feel. You all might be sitting there in your chair saying, that sounds great and all. You might say, I love it. You might say, that's not me. Here's the thing is, this activity is for myself. And when you do this activity, it's for you and only you. And it's up to you to identify the themes that you're discovering as you ask yourself these questions. And by identifying these themes, it's up to you to say, how do I feel about those themes I'm identifying, I should say. If you feel really good, if you start to get clarity, if you start to feel this unique emotion, you're on the right track, everyone. Now with these themes, you should start crafting some sort of message, some sort of definition of who you are. That definition is the name of your son. That definition is the name of your son, the thing that warms you, the thing that fires you up, the thing that makes you feel alive, purposeful, fulfilled. That's how you start to craft the definition of what your son is. Take your fulfillment journal, answer those questions, 10 per question about yourself. Then play that game with yourself. What is the number one thing about that I get fulfilled by? Why do we do that? Well, it's quite possible that someone else will say, well, yeah, I like watching the World Cup too. Well, shoot, I guess we're the same person. Not the case. When you ask, what's the number one thing that you enjoy about that, that makes you get specific, and that's telling. Some of you might say, well, yeah, I like the country to country sort of matchup and learning about culture. What if the number one thing you said was, well, no, I like the physical prowess of these athletes and what they're able to do with their bodies, the level of competition that they've gotten to with their bodies. If that was your number one answer, that's different than what my number one answer was for that same thing we both enjoy. And that's telling to who you are as an individual versus who I am as an individual. And that's why we did dig deep about the number one thing that we care about when we define all these things that we like in life. Defining your son. You dig deep, I guarantee you are going to identify themes. And with those themes, you can craft a statement. My statement, after doing this exercise and identifying these themes, my son, the name of it is providing experiences of wonder and growth. Here's the thing about your son is it's got to be actionable. It's got to do something. It's got to be an action piece, and ideally it's a contribution. It's something you do for others. Hopefully you feel the rays that fire you up and you want to go forward and warm other people up with who you are. So this son definition has to be actionable. I took the themes of wonder and experiences and growth, and I realized I like being a part of that stuff, and I like giving that to other people. Holy cow, and boy, like my being just lit up when I said that statement to myself. Now, rest assured, that came after a few drafts, right? Like it takes some revision. It takes some perfecting. This project did not happen in 24 hours. It took a while, everybody. But once I arrived at that statement, oh my gosh, everything made sense about who I am. My existence is to provide experiences of wonder and growth to others. And why does that matter? Because I want people to realize how amazing the world is, all the opportunity that's out there. that sense of wonder, that sense of growth, that advancement, that is everything about who Connor is, folks. And if I can tell you that, if you know what I'm all about, wow, we can have some powerful conversations and you have no confusion about who Connor is and what he's after in life. That statement, provide experiences of wonder and growth for people, that is my son. That is what makes me feel alive. It feels good, everybody. And it starts with that fulfillment journal. On a side note, I'm going to make sure I leave enough time for some clarifying questions here. I personally get pretty fired up about this stuff, and I want to make sure I leave time to make sure I'm clear and concise on anything, make sure I wasn't vague. So towards the end of this, we'll pause for questions. So moving on here, step one is defining your sun. When you define your sun, now you can identify the planets that are in orbit around your sun. Now, what does that mean? Well, I think everyone at some point in your life has had ideas, goals, pursuits, passions, things you've wanted to accomplish in your life, things you've wanted to say you have done with your life. A worthy goal, pursuit, project, that is a planet. When you've defined your sun, when you've been able to articulate what those warm rays are, you have a better idea of what's in your orbit. What planets or goals or projects are actually within the orbit of who you are? There might be things you've wanted to accomplish in life that, quite frankly, just sound like a good idea, but aren't in alignment with who you are, what fires you up, what makes you feel purposeful in life. The clarity of your sun will help you be able to identify the planets in your orbit. What goals, what life pursuits do you actually want to achieve for yourself? How do you start identifying your planets? Well, you've already gotten going by creating this fulfiller journal, this list of things that you like doing. What can be good is to create a bucket list too. Create a separate bucket list about anything and everything since you were a child up to this point, anything you've ever wanted to do, accomplish, or achieve. Have you ever wanted to start a business? Have you ever wanted to see the whole world, every single country? Have you ever wanted to partake in the Blazing Wing Challenge? Have you ever wanted to start a podcast? Have you ever wanted to run a marathon? Create just this bucket list of things you've ever wanted to achieve. Now let's cross-reference that with that fulfillment journal. Let's look at your bucket list of anything you've ever wanted to do with your life, and let's compare that with those themes you have pulled from the fulfiller journal exercise. What we're doing there is we're sorting the fun individual wants you have just because life has a lot of fun things to do. You're separating those from your selfless pursuits, everybody. Your selfless pursuits are the planets we're looking for here. We're going to filter out, if Connor's sun is to provide moments of wonder and growth, to provide these experiences of wonder and growth, I don't think participating in the Blazing Challenge really falls into orbit with that sun. I think you'd all agree. But on my bucket list, there's start a podcast filled with local stories from our part of the country. Man, when I name my son, when I name that statement and I look at that bucket list, wow, I realize that starting a podcast filled with local stories, that falls into alignment with my son. Okay, I think I've separated. Okay, Buffalo Wing Challenge, that's just a fun individual thing I want to do sometime to say I did it. Start a podcast of regional stories. Wow, that is a wonderful selfless pursuit that I want to share with people because my son is to give experiences of wonder and growth. That creating a podcast is a worthy planet in orbit of my son. Let's think more specific about what I do now as someone at Hatch Realty. My title is Training and Development. Does that title not align with providing experiences of wonder and growth? Absolutely. It is my fired up responsibility that I enjoy every day to try and bring value to the agents I work with, to give them an experience through our training we do to wonder about all the different ways they could be doing things, all the opportunity to get better, and to do some good old self-growth, to get better at what they're doing every single day. I am so clearly fulfilled by my job at Hatch Realty now. Being the director of training and development is a planet within my orbit, everybody, and it is fueled, fired up, warmed by that sun quite clearly. And it feels good to feel fulfilled. I have no doubt that the fire I feel is going to lead me to some really successful places, and already has, because I've been able to articulate that that's a planet within my solar system. That is something that is in line with what heats me up. And I never have to worry about burnout when I'm doing training and development based activities here at our team. Man, it feels good, everyone. You don't have to stop at just 1 or 2 planets. Craft as big of a solar system as you want. My solar system itself, heated by that sun of providing experiences of undergrowth, I have about, what is it? I've got 20 planets right now, 20 planets in orbit. These 20 different life, passion, pursuits, projects, however you want to call it, these life goals. And it is so wonderful to have an articulation of what I'm all about and all these planets in orbit that I'm going to get to one day. That's what I mean when I say this is a roadmap. I have all these lifelong pursuits ahead of me. I'm currently dwelling on a couple planets, and I cannot wait that when I have fully gotten to one planet, fully explored it, made it a reality, to move on to the next one. There is no complacency when I have this solar system mapped out. There's always that next planet I can be pursuing, not just professionally, but personally. Obviously, a podcast isn't necessarily part of my job as director of training and development, but in my free time, in any extra time, that's a life pursuit I want to see made a reality, and I understand why, and I have this fuel and clarity to go get it. You've got to be able to define your sun, and then you can identify your planets. These fulfilling purpose project planets that we want to achieve within our life. Hope everyone's having a good time here, because I know I am. This stuff gets me fired up. I could ramble on all day about this and just gush about it. But let's move on here. So we've got these first 2 steps. You got to know what heats everything. When you know what heats everything, you can identify the goals that are truly within your orbit. Now the question is well, how do we get to all this stuff? How do we make it a reality? Well, the final step is building rocket ships. You've got to be able to get yourself to those planets to achieve or realize those goals, those pursuits, to make them a reality. And to do that is to build a rocket ship. So if the sun is an identification of what fulfills you, what makes you feel alive, and the planets are the goals you truly want for yourself in your life, well, your rocket ship is how you're actually going to achieve that goal. How are you going to achieve that planet? You can't see me, but I just did air quotation marks. Maybe I should be switching back and forth to me so you can see my fun animated gestures I do. But anyway, moving on. Building rocket ships is all about mastering some amazing goal setting and goal executing frameworks that already exist out there, everybody. We're all capable of setting goals. I think one of our first mistakes, again, is they're not truly goals we want for ourselves because we don't know our suns. But secondly, we might set a good goal for ourselves without truly creating the means to execute it. We are not building the rocket ship to get there to the end of that goal. Here's where we come in with all these different frameworks on how to achieve goals, how to set up goals and execute them. These things are some wonderful tools, starting with SMART goals here. SMART goals makes you just get more critical about a goal you might set for yourself, a planet you might create for yourself. The SMART goal framework helps you eliminate creating a planet or a goal that just says, I want to be healthy. That is way too vague of a planet to know how to get to. SMART goal is an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. So when we create these planets for ourselves, when Connor says he has a podcast he wants to create, I don't just say I want to be a podcaster and that's the true name of my planet. The idea is something along the lines of, I will have a podcast series by the end of the year that'll be 10 episodes long, produced 50 minutes in length from locals around our Fargo-Moorhead area. What did I just do there? I'm just spitballing that one. I got specific about the goal itself. I gave a number that I can measure. I created a timeline that I believe is attainable. How do I know it's attainable? Well, I'm going to set aside an hour in the evening, 3 days a week to do work on this. That's all I have to check off to make sure it's going to be attainable. That are there, is it relevant? That's a great question to ask ourselves when we're crafting our sun, or when we're crafting our rocket ships to get us to our goals. Is it relevant to the sun we have for ourselves? If it is indeed, we know, all right, this is a goal I really want for myself. And lastly, timely. When is the deadline to actually get this done so we don't just lollygag around and not actually execute? When will it be done by? We have to set a finish line for ourselves to get there. So we get specific with our goals. We find our way to measure the progress of our goals. We identify that it'll be achievable by giving ourselves the time to do it. We identify that it is indeed relevant to what we're all about, to our sun in this case. And then we have a timetable, a deadline to get it done by. Let's get a broader example here. You want to be healthier? A little vague. Maybe your goal is, I want to, by this time next year, be able to participate and finish a Tough Mudder. For those of you who don't know, it's kind of a race / obstacle course sort of challenge you can do. And maybe your specific planet, in line with a sun that's all about, personal wellness, is I want to be fit enough and healthy enough with my diet, my strength, and my cardio to be able to accomplish a Tough Mudder. So we're specific. We can measure the carbs we put into our body. We can measure our caloric intake, right? That's how we can measure this. We can measure how often we're working out. We can measure the calories burned. Is this attainable? Well, I'm going to commit to working out 6 times a week. Is this relevant? Well, if my son is telling me I'm all about living a life of peak wellness and showing others how to do it, absolutely. In timetable, I will be able to do this by this time next year for the Tough Mudder. You have built your rocket ship to go chase down that planet using SMART goals, getting more specific about what that goal entails. Similarly, 4DX is another goal setting system, 4 disciplines of execution. Another great way to make sure you are identifying a wildly important goal specifically is the first step there. Identify the wildly important goal you want to accomplish. Identify lead measures versus leg measures. Some jargon there, but essentially a lead measure is something you can control. If we're using that fitness example, a lead measure is going to the gym and working out and watching the calories be burned as you're tracking them. That's a lead measure you can control. In the moment you say, I'm not burning enough calories, you can up the intensity. Now, a leg measure is what we often focus on, and that's getting on the scale and just looking down at how much you weigh. You cannot change that number in that moment. But it's the lead measures that we can tweak. That's that M in SMART. That's the measurable. You can measure the calories you're burning. You can measure how much you're taking in with your meals. You can measure how much stronger you've gotten if you want with some different systems. 4DX, first one is identify that goal. Number 2 is lead versus leg measures. Again, identifying those measurables. Number 3 is having a scoreboard. So actually having a visual scoreboard to update your progress to achieving this goal. It's kind of like your captain's log for your rocket ship. Seeing, am I on trajectory to get to that planet, to get to that goal being accomplished? That scoreboard will tell you if you're winning or you're losing at obtaining your goal when you look back at those measurables, those lead measures that you can control. And lastly, what can be so powerful is to have a cadence of accountability. That means you're sharing this with someone else other than you, and they're helping you be accountable to what you say you need to do for yourself. That's the 4DX goal framework. Know your goal in detail, be able to identify those lead measures, those measurables, have a scoreboard to track it regularly, and have someone holding you accountable to tracking your goal on that scoreboard. Last framework for you to consider, 1-3-5 goal framework. Well, again, what is your one thought out goal? What are the 3 sub-objectives you need to accomplish to say you've actually hit that goal? And then what are the 5 strategies underneath each one of those objectives that you can do to obtain those? So imagine the one goal has 3 legs, and that's what you're going to craft here. Let's go back to that last exercise goal we created there to run a Tough Mudder. That'd be your one goal. The 3 strategies, or excuse me, 3 objectives could be controlled caloric intake with meal planning, could be one objective. Third one could be cardio. Excuse me, the second one could be cardio. And the last one could be strength training. So underneath the broad goal of being ready to do a Tough Mudder, you have these 3 objectives of control my diet, have good cardio, and good strength training. Now underneath each one of those, you have 3 to 5 strategies on how you're going to do that. Maybe the diet one is I'm going to cut out carbohydrates. Might be one strategy underneath that objective. Another one would be I'm going to download a calorie tracker, right? Specific strategies to obtain that objective. Maybe the cardio one is I'm going to get a run buddy. I'm going to schedule morning runs 6 times a week. Again, 2 specific strategies you'd craft underneath that objective. For sake of time, I hope I'm being specific enough to give you examples of these. The reason I give you 3 different goal-setting frameworks, well, there's more than one way to build a rocket ship. There are a lot of different ways you can build this thing, a lot of different structures, a lot of different strategies out there for building this rocket ship. I want you to be aware of all the different ways to not only set a goal, but accomplish it. That's building a rocket ship, giving yourself that framework of knowing what you need to do to get there. SMART, 4DX, 1-3-5, depending on how you're built, because one size does not fit all, one of these will work better than the others. For some, it's a hybrid. That is how you build a rocket ship, everyone. With a clear goal in mind, a clear articulated planet that you know is in orbit with the sun that makes you feel alive. You know it's going to be a worthy journey to get in that rocket ship and go execute and say, I've accomplished that planet. I've planted my flag and said, I have accomplished something I want to do for my life. A quick nugget there. How many times can one person, or at one point, how often can you be in multiple rocket ships? Never. You can only be in one rocket ship. So there's a challenge there that it's probably safe to say you're going to have to pursue one planet at a time, maybe a couple. But don't stretch yourself too thin trying to build all these rocket ships at once. If you try to go all 4 directions at once, you're going to probably find yourself right where you are today. So as people, we can probably only hop into one rocket ship at a time to truly know we're going to be able to accomplish a goal in front of us. So one at a time is a good bit of advice I have for all of you. But that's okay to do one at a time, knowing you have this map of all the future goals coming up to keep you going. Knowing they're all fueled by that sun, that sense of fulfillment. So, the fulfillment solar system, everybody. What do we have to do? We have to reflect on who we are, to identify the themes that we can craft into our sun statement. With that in mind, we can identify what we really want to accomplish in our life, aka identify the planets within our orbit. And then lastly, we have to study the goal setting and executing strategies, aka building our rocket ships to get there. This is the fulfillment solar system. This is a sense of purpose, the things we want for ourselves, and the means to get there for ourselves. Pretty darn cool, everybody. I could talk about this stuff for hours at end. I try to be concise, But this roadmap has given me so much sense of direction and purpose. And I hope you all have some tools, some actionable steps to try and do this for yourself as well. So here we are. Thank you for listening to me ramble here a bit. We've got some participants here. I'm curious if there's any questions anyone has who is on this. Boy, I could turn this into a two-hour talk. But I'm wondering if it's all clear, if this all makes sense. A pause for anything for the participants to ask. You have that Q&A section there at the bottom of your screen. As I wait for any to come in there, again, my hope is that you let yourself sit down and reflect on your life to identify some of these things. I don't want anyone else to pursue something, spend a lot of time, a lot of effort, climbing a mountain, getting to the peak and realizing this is not what I want for myself. I don't want you all to lose that time and effort for something that's not in alignment with who you are. My hope is that you have the tools, the activity to identify your sun, aka your sense of fulfillment, purpose, that statement that boils it all down, that you can call upon to fire yourself back up whenever you need energy. I hope with that in mind, you can identify what you really want to accomplish in life. And I hope when you know what you really want to accomplish in life, you'll consider all these great strategies, these goal-setting pieces to help you get there. I really do appreciate the time, everybody. Thank you for listening in on this wonderful fulfillment solar system. It has been a big part of my life, and thanks for tuning in. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and thank you much.